Welcome to the Star Zone. I'm Patty Spagnuolo. From resource fairs geared towards our students to arts and entertainment aimed to connect with our community, Lansing Community College hosts many events throughout the year, and the Star Zone gives you a rundown on what's on the way, where it's happening, and how you can get into the zone at LCC. Hello, everyone. This is Patty Spagnuolo. Welcome to the Star Zone. Joining me on today's episode is Carol Wolfinger. Carol is the Emergency Management and Dispatch Operations Director at Lansing Community College. Carol, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Patty.
So let's begin. Carol, why are you here? No, I'm just kidding. August is National Emergency Management Awareness Month. So while browsing the links that you sent me, I noticed this statement: disasters are inevitable, but catastrophes are not. Can you explain that statement?
So it's about managing the disaster to keep it from cascading into something that's bigger than it has to become. And it's about knowing the people ahead of time so that you know who to coordinate with, you know who you're collaborating with, and to provide those resources to the first responders that need them when they need them and in the way they need them.
Okay, so this is a really big question. Can you briefly walk us through the process for planning for events that haven't even occurred? So do you all sit around a table and be like, okay, what if we have an earthquake tomorrow? What are we going to do? Which seems kind of fun, actually.
There's some people thrive on the worst scenarios, planning the worst scenarios. But so there's actually a process that's dictated to us from the national level called the first thing we do is assess threats, hazards, vulnerabilities, and do a risk assessment based on that. So we have a process that we follow. We look at where we live. You know, for example, downtown campus of LCC is right next to the Grand River. Does it flood? Yes. Matter of fact, part of the Gannon building is in a floodplain. And is there any dams near? Oh, yes, absolutely. There is a dam up the road from us, and it's a pretty safe dam. We haven't had any problems with that dam, but is it possible that it could breach? It's possible. It happened in Midland, right? So so we look at those things, and, you know, it just, since I've been here, we've gotten lots more tornadoes. What's that about? I don't know. Things are changing. And so we have to look at that. We look at floods. We look at, unfortunately, we're all looking at the violent situation around us and active violence that occurs in too many schools in our nation. And so we have to plan for those things.
Well, you know, just in listening to you, I'm also thinking one disaster can cascade into another disaster. So you could have some really bad storms, power lines down and everything, and one of those dams could fail. And now all of a sudden you've got flooding downtown Lansing. And you could even have violence on top of that because now people are looting and running around. So do you plan these like stair-step, you know, this could go to this could go to this, and you're only going to have so many resources to handle all three as opposed to just if it were just one thing.
Right. Well, obviously you plan for the worst and you hope and pray that the worst never happens, but it's possible. And even last night I was reading this morning that Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, there were 3 people killed in a tornado. So it's like our tornado alley's moving from the Oklahoma kind of to the Midwest. And so, and then the flooding there's rescues from the flooding as well. So that is multiple things that are taking place. So we do have to plan for those things. But the biggest thing is, you know, we don't have LCC as a college, doesn't have all the resources. We don't have bomb sniffing dogs. We don't have a SWAT team. We don't have water rescue teams, but our state does. So it's about the person that's in that management position knowing those resources, knowing where to get them and how to get them so that when we need them, we can have them as well. So,
oh, that's a really important notion. I guess I didn't think about it in terms of that. You're right. We couldn't have everything that would handle the city. We have the city to handle the city.
Exactly.
So,
and then the county and then the state. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So does your scope here on campus include does it include active shooter and pandemic along with any weather emergency that would happen for just the college?
Absolutely. So I had just said I don't want to, I don't like to say things that nothing I say should be used against me related to what happens in the future.
Okay.
I say that because I told my boss 6 months before the pandemic that they say this is going to be the next big thing that happens.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And so we were actually planning a measles epidemic in the spring of 2020 to exercise. And then COVID happened. Wow. And Dr. Lisa Webb-Sharp said, this is real. We're doing this for real. So,
wow.
So we had been planning for continuity aspects related to a some kind of pandemic or epidemic. We also did actually practice active shooter. We've practiced twice, the dispatch center, and have practiced with the PD, our communications, when they have done an active shooter drill within a building at LCC on the weekends. We recently just did that on Sunday, August 2nd, where we practice the coordination between our emergency operations center and an active shooter event. So we do practice these things. We're doing them more and more, and then we're reaching out to people. We even had MSU come and help us with our evaluation related to that exercise. So it was great. Great experience.
So I'm envisioning training, and because I don't know anything about it. Okay, let's just preface this with that. So when you're doing the training, the active shooter training, someone's sitting in the control room, and then this is going on, right? But if it were actually an active shooter, you all, the thinking heads, are not together. You might be driving in that morning and
or flying out.
Yeah, I mean, anything. And so, you see what I'm saying? It's a different setup.
And it's happened a lot. I mean, I don't know if you remember when there was a power outage in Lansing, it was 2014 or 15, the head of Board of Water Light was out of town. And so it happens a lot that people are out of town when a disasters happen. I mean, in the exercise, we do something called artificialities. So we pre-staged everybody in the Commons, had them sign in and wait for a call out to come to the EOC. And there are some other things in there that are artificial. So we have to kind of make them artificial. And also our PD practices with other law enforcement entities, with the county and with Lansing PD. So they came to observe our response, and in a real event, they would be responding with us. Do you know what I mean? So we practice with them because we know that we will need them, if a real emergency happens, such as that.
How often do you practice? I'm sure you don't have to practice the pandemic thing, but for active shooter, how often are you practicing that?
That would be probably a ask for the chief, because they do it more on their own without us. This is the first time we had done it with dispatch, with them, with our EOC being activated, so that we could understand the whole subtleties of everything that takes place and what we would need to do.
Okay. The only reason I was asking about the frequency is, things become, the more you practice them, they become rote. And so, I just think about that is, gosh, if you did it once a month, then if it really, God forbid, did happen, everybody's going to jump into their role without even thinking about it. And maybe they're already there. So, but hopefully that's you all know what you're doing. So don't listen to me.
It's always a learning experience, and we always learn what more we need to know and what more we need to do. So that's the purpose of exercises and training, is to learn how to improve it continually. So,
right. Yeah. Okay. What would you say is the hardest emergency to manage?
An emergency that you have no preparation for. I think, it could be anything, but if you haven't thought it through, there may be some threads that you could pull in from what other things that would apply. So it's all about capabilities. So capabilities cross emergency, right?
Oh, okay.
Like hospital capabilities or those kinds of things, they cross emergency. So it's not necessarily one thing, but I think if something is more widespread, then it becomes overwhelming, because then you don't have as many people to come help, right? You think of Katrina, think of the Hurricane Katrina. So many people responded, but they didn't have a way to communicate. And so because of Katrina, there was developed frameworks to help the system be common throughout the U.S. so that we would, if we go anywhere, we would know how to fit in. They call it incident management teams. They fit in wherever we go so that we have a common standard, common terminologies.
Are all plans considered equal? Like, okay, we're talking about commonalities, but I'm assuming it matters what industry you're in. Like the hospital is going to have a different plan than what LCC has, and probably even a different plan than what the city management.
But there's something really in common about all those things. And what is in common? It is response, preparation first, response, and then recovery from that incident. Sometimes recovery takes years because the state, MSP, Emergency Management Homeland Security Division, will be the one that works that with the federal government, with locals, and then recovery, and then mitigation. So those four things are very important in phases of emergency management, because mitigation is, let's do something now that will keep us better prepare us for the future. And I'll give you an example. And so one example is when this building was built, I think the floodplain part of it wasn't considered. Our electrical vault room in Gannon was in the basement. And after it got flooded several times, our facilities manager, Tim Martz at the time, decided it needs to be moved. And it's a painful process to move an electrical vault room. Don't get me wrong, super painful. But to mitigate it and know that it would never be flooded again to the first floor on the other side was a beautiful thing to do. That's an example of a great mitigation strategy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are we ever asked to help other agencies? And I don't know, we probably haven't had, thank goodness, a dire emergency. Well, I'm thinking of the MSU shooting. Did Lansing Community College get called to come in and help track down that person before he was found? I mean, things like that. Are we ever called in?
So our involvement in that was immediately to send somebody over to our LCC East campus. The PD sent somebody over there to make sure they were safe. So it was first and foremost us, but I did text the emergency. We as emergency managers, we are based on, in the state, MSP regions. So I meet monthly with the Regional Homeland Security and Planning Board, which is 8 counties. So we build those relationships, and Lansing Board and Water of Light is on it, and MSU is on that team. I'm on that team. We meet and we develop those relationships, and then so we can go to each other's exercises and help. Like I had MSU come to our exercise and help, and they were perfect because they had been through it. So we did not per se, I offered our help, but we did not. But another way that we can help is we had done in the pandemic. We were meeting as a county in the MSU EOC with the medical director for the county, and she declared a state of emergency right there, and we were all there to help with the planning for vaccine clinics and how that would be managed. So we definitively, as a group and as an area, work together a lot. So.
Okay. Boy, just listening to you talk makes me think there's going to be a student out there listening to this going, I want to do that for a living. Have we considered at LCC what kind of programming, or if there is such a beast that exists? I'm assuming people go into emergency management.
I think we've thought about it a lot. I've thought about it ever since I've been here. And I think actually I researched this. I did a advanced academy with emergency management of FEMA. And I did a paper, and I thought, well, is there a need for more programs in Michigan? And that actually didn't come out of that. What came out of that was more public officials need to be aware of the needs of emergency management and what we do in our state to help fund us, because most emergency managers at the county level are underappreciated and not really known. And I can think of specifics, but I won't get into that because that's politics. But but yeah, so it's very important to so what I did find out as far as LCC is concerned is that what I think would be the best move for us is to do some kind of an emergency management certificate for the first responder programs, so that at the basic level that public careers is getting their fire academy, police academy, all of those kinds of things, that they understand what emergency management is, because oftentimes first responders become emergency managers.
Right. I was just going to say, I can see where the two are very well.
So emergency managers are not first responders, but oftentimes first responders become emergency managers. So especially if they have more of an administrative ilk to their, their what they're gifted in, right? So they would want to pursue that. So it is something that I've thought about a lot. Yeah.
Wow, that would be interesting. We might have just created a whole new thing here for LCC. Are emergency management plans required by law in certain entities? And I'm thinking like cruise lines, apartment complexes. I mean, is there something required that if you have people that are depending on you, if something goes wrong, you've had a plan in place and possibly even a person at each place?
So it's a very long story, but I'll try to make this simple. There is something called a Public Act 390, which actually sets the stage for public entities to have an emergency management coordinator, is what they call it. And it's based on population. So if you're over 25,000 in the entity that you work in, you're supposed to be required to have an emergency manager. So these are public entities, not private entities. But having said that, there's a lot of private entities that have taken that up, like Consumers Energy, DTE. So those are critical, our critical infrastructure, we would call them. The critical infrastructure partners are the ones that really are focused on those emergency operations plans. So the quintessential center of everything is the emergency operations plan. Some people call them crisis management plans, but in essence, it's all the same thing. Like during an emergency, what are you going to do? Who's going to do it? How do you do it? Those kinds of things are in there for your entity, whether it be a college or a business like Board of Water and Light or whatever. So that's really how it works, yeah.
25,000 people sounds like way too many. I mean, I would think by the time you hit 25 people, you need some sort of plan to corral these folks.
They recommend. And so, there's legislation, like I said, for K-12 now.
Okay.
There's an Office of School Safety out of Michigan State Police. And there's entities. So I think the certain industries have requirements. I'm not as familiar with those. But then the state, they recommend having an emergency manager over 10,000. They recommend it. It's just not a requirement. This is the whole thing, is that the requirements come at a certain level and then the recommendations will come at a different level. But yes, I mean, I'll say, for example, we talked about my church. We have a security team. We have an emergency operation plan. So we do that, and we meet on a monthly basis to make sure that, because there's been, unfortunately, in our state, attacks on worship centers. We don't want that to happen. We want to be prepared. So I think at every level, we need to be thinking about this. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. What does LCC do to prepare for all types? Like, talk a little bit about what you all do to prepare for various. Right. What are the things that keep you up at night?
So my charge when I started was to build a culture of preparedness. What does a culture mean? So that everybody has a general understanding of what to do in an emergency. So we created those posters that you see around. The point of those posters is to cover 95 to 99% of everything you need to know for the common person. I'm a really big advocate on symbols and colors representing things, and they help us remember. There's studies been done that it helps put it in your memory. Repetition, and you'll see that I work with Karen Tomasulu, we do a monthly preparedness message in the Star. So we bring things up again and again, we repeat them so people know. Well, if we have a medical emergency, you do this. If we have a power or an energy emergency, you do this. You're told to evacuate, this is what you do for an evacuation. And then we also have what I call our advocates at LCC, our building emergency response teams. Every building has an emergency response team, and they have coordinators that are in charge. In this building, for example, we have 3 coordinators. We have one for the library, one for the Learning Commons, and one for ITS. And they coordinate together, and they are responsible for their areas. And then we train them more. is my point. We train them to be emergency advocates so that they can help others, because there's going to be people coming and going at LCC all the time, and we don't have time. We don't have them for a long time to train them. But we also send those messages, preparedness messages, to D2L. So the students get a monthly letter called Top 10 Things You Need to Know, and there's always a preparedness message in there. So we try to do that. We try to put it in our orientation. We have little things we hand out, little flyers, little cards. We have an app we are trying to get people to use, and we have a pretty good usage of it right now. It's under 1,000, but it used to be under 200. So it's called Rave Guardian. And then, you know, so those are the ways we try to prepare. And then in detail, we try to prepare an annual exercise for our executive leadership, are part of our incident management team. So we do that together at least once a year, and I do a IMT 101. So we can't train everybody to the depth that I'm talking about, but we train a lot of people to the depth so that they can help those around them when an emergency happens. Yeah. So.
Do you have to report your plans and what LCC does? Do you have to roll that up to somewhere, not just within LCC, but like at the state level or somewhere?
So, since I'm not a PA 390 program, this is what we call it, which is a legislative public act, I don't have to, but almost everybody does if they want to get funding through, there's grants through the federal government. There's certain things they have to do, and one is submitting their emergency operation plan. And there is now, we do a tri-county mitigation plan. They get a contractor to do that through grants. And so, yes, there's certain things we have to. I don't have to, but I do work with my other people to make sure that I understand their plans and they understand my plans, so that when we work together, we'll understand one another. So, yeah.
Can we go backtrack just for a quick second on that Rave app?
Sure.
Is that something, okay, first of all, to anybody,
Yes.
whether you're an LCC person or not, will that tell me if the weather's going to start turning bad? What exactly am I going to get from the Rave app?
So the Rave app has several functions. It lets you do two touches to the 911 center, the local 911 center, or 2 touches to our desk. So you don't have to dial the home number to our dispatch desk, which will get a police officer rolling as soon as that happens, if that's what you need, whatever you need, emergency medical assistance. And then it also has a list of resources related to LCC, online resources and other online resources related to our emergency response guide and how do we communicate with you during an emergency. We have a emergency notification system. How do we do that? So we have PA systems. When do we do that? How do we do that? What does that look like? So we have information in there that people can look at. And then it also has a whole list of resources for mental health, poison control center, all these resources in the state and federally that people can access quickly. And then the last thing it has that is really cool is that it has a online chat where you can chat directly to the desk, the front desk, the dispatch operations desk, in case there's something going on. Let's just say you're scared, you think somebody's following you, and you want them to know about it, and you maybe want to send an officer, but you don't want to call.
Okay. Oh.
You can say, someone's stalking me.
Okay.
And they can do a geolocation on you if you have it turned on, and send an officer.
Oh.
So it has all kinds of cool features, and it also get emergency notifications through it as well.
Oh, okay. All right. Which would be weather or no?
So
you can tell them all about the weather.
No. So the reason that we kind of made a decision that there's so many weather reports that come out. If you have the National Weather Service app, or if you have the county, if you sign up for the county notifications, they pass the weather apps through immediately. So we felt like that's just one more layer. So we had made a decision last year, and we put it in the STAR, that we were only going to do public address and announcements through our PA system when there's a tornado warning, so to tell people to shelter where it's happening. So in other words, if it's only happening downtown, we will only do it there. If it's happening both downtown and west, we will do it at both places. So now we have a new system where we can do a PA to any building that we own. We have 2 systems because we have a different system for east. We can do a PA to any building that we own pretty quickly.
Wow. Kind of sounds like you guys are knocking it out of the park. So I feel so much better coming here every day.
Good.
Can you just briefly explain what the month is about and what's happening nationwide to promote emergency management? Why do we have it? I would think every month should be emergency management month. But
Well, I think so. This was established last year, I think, because there was a lot of criticism of FEMA with the new administration, and they wanted to show their value to the country. And emergency managers, I mean, when somebody comes up to me, what do you do? Oh, I'm an emergency manager. They just look at you like, what does that mean? Now, for a while, they thought it was like financial fiduciary takeover like they did in Detroit a few years ago. No, it has nothing to do with it. But no, so people don't even understand what it is. We're more, like I said, we're not first responders, but we work with first responders, and we do overarching coordination with regions and areas and people and first responders and resources in that area. So I used to work for the state, and I worked the Flint water. You know, a lot of water that was coming in, bottled water, and that was hard. Where are we going to get enough what we did there, where are we going to get enough warehouses to house all the water that people are donating?
Wow.
And how are we going to distribute it all?
Yes.
And that's a big deal. How do you coordinate all that? So that's just an example. But that's what we do in emergency operations centers, coordinate all these things. So the emergency manager plans ahead to build those relationships, understand who they need to coordinate with and what our resources are, so that we can best respond to the people we're serving. So this month is very important for people to understand what we do, how important it is, and to your community specifically. And that's why it says know your emergency manager. We did a little article Karen did last year, Karen Tomasulo, on know your emergency manager, and highlighted Chris and I and Catherine. So it was a great, Catherine Castle's a great little article, and it's because people don't know. They assume we do something. They make assumptions based on what first responders do, and they need to know what emergency management does.
wow.
Yeah.
Very good. Is there anything else you want to add?
I have loved working at LCC and doing this job, and there's never enough time to do everything you want to do, right? I mean, you can never be 100% prepared, but we always come in, work every day to try to get better at it, right? So, that whole thing with the exercise we recently did was to practice our emergency notifications with dispatch, because they if it's a life safety issue, we have our dispatch operations center do that. They put out those life safety messages. The other messages that aren't necessarily life and death maybe come from myself or our public relations group, but those emergency messages need to come out no matter where I am, right?
Right.
From somebody else. So it's very important. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for coming and visiting my show, Carol. It's been very eye-opening to what's going on here, and I feel like we're in really good hands.
Thank you. I hope so, and I've loved my job, and every day's a new adventure.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for listening. This is Patty Spagnuolo, wishing you well, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the Star Zone. For more information on this episode, visit lccconnect.org. You can also find a complete list of Lansing Community College events by visiting lcc.edu/calendar. Until next time, thanks for getting into the zone.